Hi guys, so I wanted to just go over a few images that I edited for the recent project that I shared with you yesterday. And additionally, just quickly talk about my website and what I'm doing about updating it, because that's what I was doing today morning. So I'll share with you a little bit about that. So I use Pixieset for my website, and at the moment I am doing a revamp. So you won't be able to see it if you go on my website now, because it's on the draft side of things. So I'm working on kind of refining it and then also presenting some of the work that I want to be hired for. I haven't updated my website for a long period of time, so I'm kind of piecing everything together properly so it just looks very cohesive, so that when a client visits my website, they already know what they would expect from me as a photographer, filmmaker. I'm trying to streamline it a bit, and then also select some of my best work to put on there. I highly recommend Pixieset. I'm not sure if I'll be able to have like a coupon code, so if I do, I'll just put it on the description below so you can check it out. So I use Pixieset for my client delivery, my website, also some of my studio documents. So for example, if I want to have a contract signed for a wedding agreement, I use it there as well. It works really well because I can just email my client, they sign it, and then we all have a document rather than having any paperwork. So yeah, so far I've enjoyed using it. I want to jump on to now the before and afters, and then kind of go over how I tackled this recent project for the camps and lodge that shot, basically a tented camp that we shot in Serengeti. Let's jump into it. Okay, so I've opened Lightroom over here, and basically I'll just show you some before and afters in terms of what I've done. So this is a before and after of this drone shot. And if we can do the mask over here, you'll be able to see that I've added some masking over here. This is just to bring up a little bit of that warmth, to make it a bit warm and bring up a bit of those whites. I think I can even bring it up just a little bit more, just to make it a bit more interesting. And then above here, I had cooled it down on the top area over here for the sky. So just cooled it down a little bit over here. So before, not too much, just cooled it down. I think I could have even done a bit more over there. So before and then after, before and after. And then as a whole, so I think here for the mask, before, after, before, after. I've really learned that, let's see here, before and after for this area. So I really learned that when you are editing these images, it's always nice to kind of decide where you want somebody's eyes to fall into. And by using like the masking tool and luminosity, basically kind of bring up the exposure in certain areas, and maybe cooling it or warming it helps with making the image come to life. So this is one of those visuals. I can show you a before and then after. So this is after, and then this is before, straight from the drone. Works really well. We'll go into this next image over here. I didn't really do much, just a before and after. Quickly click over here, before, after, before, after. So I try to make these images as true to life as possible. I don't try to tweak them as much in terms of the editing. In this scenario, just drop the highlights, increase the whites here, maybe increase a little bit of the exposure. And sometimes if I want to bring some saturation, I'll usually go down to the calibration. If you bring up some of this blue primaries, it makes it a bit more punchy, but doesn't make it like that weird saturation. Okay, so we move on. Let's look at some before and after here. So this is before. This is after, before, after. Just warmed it up a little bit, dropped down some of those highlights. Didn't do really a lot, and I think I also did some masking over here. So basically just kind of played around with the shadows and played around with the highlights. So I dropped them using the luminous range here. I've found that it works really well to kind of create luminance contrast in images. I like working that instead of doing the entire changes on the entire image. So I work with the entire image, but I also do some masking in a lot of these images. If we move on to this image, I really reduced the highlights here to save some of this information. So if I bring it back up, you can see that we lost some of this information in the highlights over here, but I'm able to bring it back and save a lot of this, and you're able to see some of these bird images here. This actual image was shot by my assistant. His name is Rajabu. Beautiful capture over here. And what I did with it is, just tweaked it a little bit, bring up the shadows, bring up a bit of the clarity, dehaze, and some vibrance over here. And additionally, I did do some masking. So if you can see over here before and then after, just to bring a bit more attention here. I felt like this area was a bit too dark, and that helps with the overall image. So I enter here, and then we have a before and then after. So not a lot of changes. Try to keep it as natural as possible. Just converted this to a black and white, add a bit of contrast for this image. So this was before, and then this is after. I really liked how the trees kind of like popped out in the landscape with a bit of that fog in the ground. Beautiful 70mm shot here on the drone. And then additionally here we have some images of the camp itself before and then after. I did do some masking here for the bottom part just to bring a bit more interest in the tent, because you can see it wasn't as engaging as after the masking and kind of bringing up some of those exposures. So I just brought up some of the exposure just to create more interest in this particular area. Okay, and in terms of the overall edit, as you can see, this is a before and then after. So just brought up some of the contrast. I felt like the image was a bit too flat, some of the vibrance, and yeah, we're good to go. Here, before, after, just creating a bit more contrast, nothing too dramatic in comparison to the starting point. So this was the starting point. A lot of these images I try to focus on the actual shot to get something interesting, to really focus on how the light is falling down on a particular subject, and then to work with that in post. Here I did drop down some of the highlights, as you can see, and I did do some masking. So for the actual tented camp here, so before and then after, so just kind of bring a bit more interest here. This is something that I've found that helps with these shoots that I'm doing, just to make the subjects pop out a bit more from the background. So I do a lot of masking. Helps with kind of focusing the viewer's eyes on a particular subject rather than them just looking one way. And remember, a photo is like a 2D image, so when you create these kind of like pockets of highlights and shadows, it makes it pop out a little bit. Over here, same thing, just a simple edit, to just bring out the colors, and then some masking here to make the food pop out a little bit. So this was just a bit of a increase in whites and exposure as well. So nothing too crazy. I always try to keep it as simple as possible. And then here are some of the adjustments that I did, and also in the curve. Nothing too crazy for these edits. Here we can have a before and then after, so a bit of editing as well to get rid of these branches. As you can see, I felt like these were creating a bit of distraction, so I masked them out, and then also did a bit of masking over here to just bring some interest in specific areas, to just bring that 3D pop into this image. Again, just bringing up the whites in this situation, and then the overall edit, bringing up the vibrance and dropping the highlights. I could have even dropped a little bit more just to get a bit more detail on the background. But yeah, that's what I delivered. Here, actually, I shot 2 images, and then I merged them together. So I actually shot the image of the tented camp with the lights on, switched them off, and then shot the Milky Way, and then I did a merge in Photoshop. So just basically having two layers together and then masking out what I wanted to show. So I just had the layer with the sky lit up. So I had to actually wake up at 3 a.m. to 3:30 and then photograph this at 4 a.m. to capture the Milky Way. I used the app Photopills to actually be able to know exactly where the Milky Way was going to be to capture this image. So it was a bit of a tricky one and had a bit of a learning curve. I think in the future I might handle it a little bit different in terms of like how I want to light up this scene. I would have loved for the roof to be a little bit lit up. But yeah, I had a limited amount of time, just 30 minutes before these clouds started to close this Milky Way scene. So that is what I ended up doing, and just tweaked it a little bit in terms of the color here, so before and then after. So I edited the image, merged them, then brought them here for some final editing. So that is basically the overview for this project, kind of like the post-production for this particular project. All right, guys, so that is the overview for the before and after for the editing of this particular project. Let me know if that was helpful. Initially, when I was doing a lot of these edits for hotels, I was creating a lot of filters, making a lot of adjustments. And as I looked at a few creators or photographers that I really loved in terms of the images, I realized a lot of the images are always looking very natural, very clean, but always had a bit of a pop to them. So what I've learned after shooting for these past 5 years is less is more, and a lot has to happen in the actual shooting side of things, like how you capture these images and these compositions for these images, because a lot of times our subject is something that is not moving. It's a room. It's like props in a room, and what you're trying to capture is how the sun is interacting with that prop and creating a bit of contrast. I found that has been a bit helpful, and when it come to like shooting these images in the room, I've learned that, you know, having those wide shots are great, but then also capturing these interesting details is very interesting to tell a bit more story about the room itself. And then when it comes to the editing side of things, less is more, and then also the masking tool and luminosity range tool really help with making that 3D pop happen for these images. So I'll share a lot more when it comes to these projects and how I've gone about editing. I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, shoot them down below and I'll be more than happy to answer them. That's it from me. I hope you have a great day. As always, remember to stay safe and stay creative. I'll catch you guys on another one. Peace out.